Hello, welcome back. For those of you that are here to see part 2 of the interview with the incredible Dom Kelley, you can see that I've decided to go ahead and put parts 1 and 2 together in a more concise way just to allow for the context of the conversation to flow a little bit better. So for those of you that didn't see part 1, it's your lucky day. Obviously, I'm not really here to get views or all those things. It's really about the conversation. I think we see in these times, in the state of the world, that we all think and feel so differently, and in order to move through that, we have to engage in conversation that's sometimes difficult and may make us feel initially uncomfortable, but then allows for so much learning and education. I know for myself, I sat back and had to let it absorb, see what my thoughts are, articulate my perspectives, and I hope that you're able to do the same through this conversation. Dom is such an incredible individual that I'm inspired by as a professional and just as a human being. He knows how to deliver his point in a respectful and clear manner, and that's something that I want to learn from each day. He has an extensive background working with Mariah Carey, Gwen Stefani, Cirque du Soleil, the list goes on and on. Please educate yourself on him. You can check him out online if you have yet to hear of him. I mean, I don't know where you've been if you haven't. I'll link his handle here. I'll link mine. I'll link Human Movements. Go ahead and follow us, see what our backgrounds are, why we've decided to have this conversation, and hopefully you'll engage in the conversation as well in the comments below, and we get to hear a little bit from you. That's why we're here. We just want to create this community with you and, connect in this time when we're also separated. So let's go ahead and get to it. I'll just kind of jump right into it. So with Human, with the honoring of our community, the first thing that we really talk about is our power, as whether it be a performer or a creator, the power that we have to create the community around us, the impacts that we have. So what are some examples where either you've seen someone impacting an environment or you yourself have been able to physically change the way that things are working?
I feel like, and not getting very esoteric, but there's a way to curate and cultivate your energy. And we all know that it starts from the top. A lot of times, when people in power really use their influence for good, we all benefit from it. But I try to ask myself, if I'm not in charge, how can I influence the situation? A
Exactly.
lot
And I
of
think
times,
that's what we really want to drive in with Human for dancers coming up, how they can really make a more positive environment if they're feeling powerless.
yes, a lot of times I like to say it stops with me. And I'm not saying that you have to take on all that energy, but a lot of times, we'll feel a lot of things in the world and then pass it on to somebody else. So if you can stop that right then and there, then that's a way of holding on to your power.
And how do you feel that you can exercise that? Like you're saying, you don't want to hold on to all of that kind of energy. How can you release it in a way that won't be detrimental to the environment?
Basically, releasing it is understanding the other person's point of view. And that doesn't necessarily mean agreeing all the time, but you have to have a little bit of logic and compassion to go, okay, I see their traumas, I see their insecurities, I see where they're coming from.
Right.
And I'm not going to try to placate that, but I'm going to try to soothe that and disperse it as much as possible, or use dance as my outlet. I mean, it's in the word outlet, let out. So a lot of times that's how I like to let it go and not let it permeate the environment.
I'm sure for you, because you've worked as a professional dancer for so many years, and now you've moved on to doing creation, supervising choreography, all of those types of things, you understand all the many people that go into making a reality possible and
Yes,
having to have an understanding of every single person's job in order to make that machine work as it should.
for sure. And you go into it knowing that you're one tiny cog in a great machine,
Mm-hmm.
but you also realize you are an important cog in that machine. And I think once you go in there knowing that, it changes everything. And then also being of service. I think a
Yep.
lot of times we go into things, by accident, we're selfish. By human nature, we're selfish. But if you can go in there going like, if I can help one person today achieve one of their goals, then I've done my work.
Exactly. And it's finding that perfect balance of humility and power,
Yeah.
realizing your power. I think many times dancers think that they just show up and they're told what to do. And to a certain degree, that is part of the position. But at the same time, like you're saying, what can I add to this environment? What is my role here? And
Yes.
figuring out how important that cog really is, because it is true.
Because at the end of the day, choreographers can't choreograph air. So
Mm-hmm.
they need bodies, they need spirits, they need energy in the room. And it's very transactional because as you are of service, you are also taking on something great too, like whether it's, figuring out that your body can move differently or being a muse. You know, sometimes it's great just to be yourself. And if you can ultimately be yourself in any of those situations and then be rewarded for it, then I think that's the best room to be in.
Today in this industry, it's a crazy time.
Hmm.
We're facing a lot of things when it comes to equalities, and there's a lot of sexual assault that's being brought forth, and things with our community that we're not necessarily proud of.
Yes.
And our goal is always to be proud of the community that we're within. This is a heavy question, but how do you think with those types of things that we're facing within our industry that we are all a part of, how can we take a role to adjust that in a positive way?
I think one way is remembering and realizing we are all human.
Mm-hmm.
We will all have traumas. We will all have things we need to work to. So we need some kind of compassion in that way, but also accountability and education. And I think those two things people forget go hand in hand, because once you hold somebody accountable, then you want to educate them, or they need to educate themselves to then be better, to move throughout the community and throughout their world. And that also means don't put people up on an unattainable pedestal because you like their moves or you like the way their body moves.
Mm-hmm.
You have to remember that we are all on a journey trying to figure out what we're doing and what our purpose is.
Yeah.
Holding people accountable. And that doesn't mean you can't do that with love. Mm-hmm. That's what our dance teachers did to us. When we weren't in first position correctly, they told you weren't. When your toe wasn't pointed, they told you weren't. When your shoulders were up, they told you weren't. So when you're doing something bad with the community, you shouldn't get mad that people are telling you that that's not what we should be doing.
What we put onto our social platforms is something that we need to have a lot of integrity toward. I know that mainstream culture is much different than it was when I was a young child. So things that people are seeing now as being cool is, in my eyes, beyond their years. So how do you think a young person should navigate when they see their mentor, somebody that they look up to as a choreographer, choreographing to a song that is mainstream, that's on the radio, but is talking about very derogatory things that are way beyond their sexual
their scope.
Their scope. Like how best navigate that to not just fall into what they think is the cool thing to do, the cool way to dress, the way to promote themselves so that they will be successful, but ultimately is not successful for them as a human.
The thing is, you have to be very judicious. I like to be one of those people that shows every facet of myself to the gram. Sometimes I can be sexy, sometimes I can be funny, sometimes I can be this. So you're not pigeonholed into one certain trope. I know a lot of times it is very popular for men and women and anybody who's gender nonconforming to be very vulnerable and nude on the gram. Now, I'm not saying I'm body shaming at all, but what I am saying is if you show different facets of your personality and of your human being and your experience, then nobody can quite pinpoint and just go like, oh, you're the sexy person.
Right.
Oh, you're the one I'm going to hit on, because you would have shown a facet and then it would have been on them how they interpreted that one picture. So I think you just have to be very careful in what you're doing and what you're putting out there, because now once it's out, it's kind of out there in the ether for everybody to consume. So if that's what you want, I mean, I understand. I went to college. I did a lot of things. I would be mortified if some of those things that I did were online now.
Yeah.
But there's also a way to go, all right, this is how I like to move in this time. And then when I like to dance by myself, this is what I move like. So I feel like if you show people a good, accurate representation of all the facets of your personality, you won't be pigeonholed into the sexy trope.
Yeah. And that actually carries over into some of the other ideas within human of understanding your instrument and making your own mold. Is we move into an industry where you're very much chosen on type.
Yes.
It's a profile. And so we're molding ourselves to be what we think someone is going to hire.
Yes.
Thankfully, today, I think that has expanded as to what is hireable. What is your suggestion to people when they're feeling pressures to act a way that maybe they don't connect with ethically, morally, fit to a look or type that is not true to them? What do you suggest?
It's hard for me to give advice in this situation, so I will say what I have done, because I can only go by empirical evidence.
Yeah.
If I do not feel comfortable doing something, one thing is I take it upon myself to speak up, to go, I'm sorry, or ask for clarity in the vision, because sometimes it could just be you putting the residue of your trauma onto the vision, and somebody might have a completely different scope of what's happening.
Yeah.
You know, pull somebody to the side. You don't necessarily have to do it in front of everybody. It's just using your COUTH my grandmother used to say. So make sure you are always respectful in that situation so nobody can hold it against you. Last thing that I do is I just don't do it. There is something for everybody out here. I think a lot of people forget that jobs always come back around. There were certain choreographers I couldn't work for because I was not sexy enough, nor did I have the body type to do it, nor was I willing to do certain things. Let me tell you, those choreographers come back around because there are so many different jobs out there for you to do. If you can't be the sexy person this time around, there'll be a moment where you need to be in a suit. If you can't be the sexy person here, you're going to have to act like a kid for Nickelodeon or Disney of those other shows. So what I say is hold on. Basically, the reward comes to the people that can hold on the longest. So while you're waiting, get a side hustle. Get something that makes you happy. Do, whether it's dance and fitness or something that you can keep your body and your mind going. But at the end of the day, it always comes back around. And let me tell you, for example, anything, ballet based, you might not have on a lot of clothes, like, so you're showing your lines and everything. But anything where you feel unsafe and it doesn't represent who you are, don't do it, because I guarantee there'll be a job that's better around the corner that's suited for you. And I've been working for years, and that has always rung true.
That's such a beautiful point. I love that you said that, because when you're trying to get into the industry, you're just trying to get through that door. Sometimes you become willing to do things that are completely outside of your moral base.
Yes.
Hold on to your identity, know who you are, and then ultimately the right place will find you. And what you said too, finding a side hustle, that diversification of yourself and finding other things within the industry that you latch onto only gives you more respect for all the people that are on the set.
And then the next step to that is then not judging people who have done it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to be so autonomous that way. It's like, just because they did that, it's fine for them.
Yeah.
That's just not my get down. So you then can't stand on your moral high horse and then go like, ugh. You have to go, that worked for them. I'm not that person, but I guarantee you something better is for me, or I'll just go build it myself.
Yes. It seems overwhelming, but the amount of skill that you gain through that process, the ups and downs, the falls, the everything, are so much a part of building your character.
And the respect level, because I will have to say this, there is nothing better than the veterans and your elders respecting what you do, because at the end of the day, they will keep pushing you, they will keep mentoring you, they will keep supporting you. Now, it's great to have the love and the respect and the admiration of people who are younger than you, but I guarantee you the respect of people who came before you, there is nothing like that.
It's true. It's true, because they've been there, they've done it, they've seen it.
Yep.
Well, this has been beautiful. I appreciate you just chatting with us about this. You have such a depth of knowledge. I feel like you're an observer and you take in so much information. So to be able to hear you speak it, I learned so much from you. So I appreciate it. Human is really about self-discovery, learning about how you want to form your identity and your individuality in an industry that sometimes will tell you to look and act a certain way.
Yes.
And to give these skills earlier, to allow yourself to think autonomously instead of just, okay, I'm going to do my 5, 6, 7, 8. Tell me where to be. I'm going to stand here. I'm going to do it. That's very much what I grew up in that way. Like, tell me what to do and I'll do it. But learning how to think for yourself so then you don't take those negative paths is really what we're trying to bring forward with Human.
Yes. It's very easy to go with the grain. And not necessarily in thinking and in dance, but in your heart. So sometimes it's great to go like, well, I think differently, and articulate why you feel differently. So I think all of us, it's great to have this space to be able to have a great conversation that is also rooted in experience and education. I commend you. Thank you for doing it, because we all need it. And I assure you the world would be a better place because people will be able to hear this.
Well, thank you. I know that they will be for hearing you. So thank you so much. So, wow, my goodness. Isn't he the most incredible? I mean, he inspires me in so many ways. So concise in his thoughts, so clear. He's such an educated individual, and I hope that this has inspired some thought for you, made you look at things differently. I know that we kind of got into some tricky subjects that have come about these days that have really always been there, but things that we're speaking on now in this time where people are having a chance to reflect and sort through some of their past traumas and some of the things that are currently going on that shouldn't continue. So I hope that this inspires you as much as it inspired me, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.